I think, until these last two comments, there was a tension between, appeals to, academic historical profession, the historical science on the one hand, which serves the role as the debunker, as the useful moral kind of corrective to inaccuracies in the media on the one hand, and then this desire to be involved in the media at the same time, referring kind of mysteriously to the laws of the media. Now, I think what I call to mind here is the distinction that Michael Oakeshott made between the practical and historical past. Now, in the historical past, basically this is proper historical practice, proper academic research. In the practical past, the loose, unexamined memory that people carry around with them to actually respond to issues. Now, Hayden White has recently argued, using De Soto, broadly speaking, that the practical past, he subverts Oakeshott. He said the practical past was essentially excluded from historical research, with the exodus of a rhetoric from history. And this then leads it to resurface in historical fiction. So it's because it's been kicked out of historians' practice that all this media work is happening. So my question is really related precisely to this last point you've raised. What do we think the kind of history that historians can do would be able to deal with this problem, would be able to acknowledge that in fact it is something about the connection we forge between the past and the present without decrying it as being presentist, right? That is actually part of the historical process. How do we turn that into the object of historical research? Because I think that is where an academic historian can make a contribution in the context of history constantly being invoked.
Do we collect a little bit?
We can have direct response if you've got something to respond directly.
Can I come back on that?
Yeah, of course.
I think that's absolutely crucial. I don't know if you know Dominic Capra's work on writing history, writing trauma, but he's making a very similar point about writing the, whatever he calls it, the middle voice, or I always think of it as the third way, but it's not, isn't it? I think it's the middle voice. But it is really, really difficult to get right and to do. We know that historians themselves are formed by and are embedded in and contribute to the societies in which they live, and we know that we as historians choose subjects if we have the luxury of choice and are not commissioned. We choose subjects which are meaningful to us in some way, but how to convey them is often the hardest part of the whole thing, how to write it in a way that is accessible and meaningful, and that you are respecting what I think you would probably want to call the laws of history rather than the laws of the media, but the rules of the trade, as it were, and yet actually being meaningful in a way that's meaningful to the reader. And it is very difficult. I mean, I'm not suggesting there's a resolution, but I think the postmodernist versus empiricist positivist debate never dealt with that adequately, and I don't think Dominic Capra has dealt with it adequately
Well, me
either.
neither. So
Yeah.
I was just wondering, because I know you've indicated this kind of middle way is required, but I've yet to find it. I wonder whether, just very quickly, whether moving to a kind of history of historical representations that focuses precisely on how they are employed within a context, whether this would be of any use, or whether it would be somehow dodging the issue by moving, would it be too similar to the postmodernist position here?
I mean, I think it would be, it's absolutely crucial for the self-reflection, but it doesn't necessarily show you the way how to do. I mean, the methodological problem needs to be tackled, but it doesn't necessarily show you the way how to do it differently. And but my plea was just for not excluding, I mean, as you said, not excluding other representation, but the normal academic literature from our reflection on the methodology, how to write or represent history. But I can't give you.
No. I'm just this is what.
I can't give you the middle way either. I suppose it very much depends on the type of problem and the type of material you have to deal with and what you can do with it.
That's a different project that you're proposing there to write the history
Well, I
of
just wanna take
historiography.
it-
It's
Yeah.
a different project from the grappling with how can we write history differently. Do you see what I mean? I mean, I could do both. I could do either. I could either say, how am I going to do my next book quite differently, or I could say, okay, my next book is going to be about different ways of doing history, and it's not going to be. Just,
yeah. It's not gonna.
No, well, but it is partly what you were
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
at, which is to address the issue of how historians and historiography has developed in different ways. And that is being done. A lot of people are doing that. But it doesn't necessarily supply the answer as to how we think it would be more appropriate to write history of something else.
Yeah.